Hi everyone, and welcome to the first tutorial on the YouTube channel for Stamp the Fun Up. This video corresponds to the Facebook Live show on May 12th, 2021. So if you want to pause this, head over to Facebook and check that out. It is on my Facebook page, Stamp the Fun Up. And what we did, we were featuring the new designer series paper from the new annual catalog for Stampin' Up! 2021. And we are featuring slimline cards that will fit into standard mailing size envelopes. And what I've done, I have created a pop-up easel card for the slimline, which I have not seen out there yet in the world of crafting, paper crafting. So if you like this design and you think you need this in your life, please share the video to everyone who also you feel needs this in their life, because I think it's pretty cool to have a pop-up easel slimline card. So this was the model card made on the Facebook Live show. Today I'm going to walk you through a tutorial to make your own. It will not look like this when it's done. It's going to be just a basic card so that you can, of course, embellish your own the way you like it. So let's talk about what you need. First of all, you need a standard mailing envelope. This is just a standard envelope. Now, believe it or not all of them are the same size. So to create a slimline card to fit in the standard size envelope, you want a piece of cardstock, 8.5 by 11, that has been trimmed down to 8 by 9.25. That is a basic size. And what we're going to do, I'm not using my scoreboard. I'm just going to fold this and use my bone folder. Okay, so you're going to fold the cardstock in half. And first we're going to be measuring this to make sure it fits in our envelope, because like I said, not all standard envelopes are standard sizes. Okay, so that was a loose fold. Press it out. And you can give it a good burnish because you want a good, nice, sharp, clean line. So take this now as it's folded and lay it on top of your envelope. And make sure that you have an even edge of white showing all around that envelope. If you don't, or if you're going to embellish a lot on this card and make it very thick, you're going to want to trim this down. I would go by 1/8 of an inch, depending on how thick you need to make it. If you know you're going to make a really thick card, cut it down 1/4 of an inch on each side, because you need that extra space for the envelope to puff up around all those embellishments. Okay, so that's what you want to do first, is make sure that the card base fits your standard envelope, and you do that by starting with a piece of cardstock cut to 8 by 9.25 inches. So remove your envelope, and the next thing we're going to do, I'm going to fold this around on itself and burnish it, and take the paper trimmer. Of course I had to hit the camera stand. Okay, and we're going to actually cut this right in half. And I'm lining up my fold mark on my cutter line. Okay, you now have two pieces of cardstock that are 4 by 9.25. The next thing you're going to do is put one of these off to the side for a moment. Take the second one. Now you're going to want to score. And you're going to score it only at 1 inch. And remember, with scoring, light strokes back and forth, Not one big deep cut, or you will cut through your paper, the cardstock. Okay, so you need just enough, I don't think you can see it, but just enough so that you can fold this. Okay, so give that newly scored section a good press over, and then burnish it out. And for this project, I suggest using liquid glue, unless you have an industrial tape runner like the Stampin' Seal Plus, then you could try that, but I like to use the liquid glue for these. This is a good, because this project is going to be moving, you know, this is a pop-up card, so I want it to be good and sturdy when it dries. So you're going to take the other half of the cardstock you cut, and what we're going to do is put adhesive on this scored side that we flipped down. And I actually am going to put my silicone craft mat underneath me here. And fold it up, flip it over. And you're going to line up this edge to the edge of that cardstock. That's another reason the liquid glue is great, because you can slide it into place. Now what you want to do when you get those edges lined up, hold them, follow the edge of your cardstock down to make sure that it is even with the edge of the cardstock underneath it. Now they're not going to match at the end, obviously, because we folded 1 inch over and we have it glued down. Okay? Yeah, we didn't do bad with the glue overload. Alright, so now you are going to take this cardstock that we just glued down to the card base and pick up one end and fold it back on itself. I did not pre-score this fold because of the next step. You want the next step measured correctly more than you want this square we've created measured correctly. Okay, this is not as important. So just press it out good. Okay, so now you can see there is our folding mechanism for the card. So now what I would do is take a paper clip and clip that down on each side. This liquid glue sets up fast, so just while we do the other parts of this card, you can just set that off to the side like that. And I'll just set it right up at the top. Okay. And the next thing that you need, we're going to focus on the decorative layers, okay? So what you need is a piece of cardstock, designer series paper, I'm sorry, that is 4 inches by 9 1/4. And a piece of designer series paper that is 6 1/4 by 2 3/4. And then 2 extra pieces of cardstock, one cut to 6 1/2 by 3, and one that is a 4 by 4 square. You want it to be 4 by 4 because we're going to trim it to fit a part of the card, okay? So start out with a 4 by 4 inch square. Whatever scraps you have left over, you can cut out a couple die cuts. You're going to need at least 2 die cuts for this project, and you want die cuts that are in a silhouette shape like this from the Hand Pen Petals bundle. And you want one with enough surface area because we're going to be stamping on this and stamping on a second, this is from the Everyday Labels, I believe. So you want 2 good flat surface area die cuts out of cardstock as well. Okay. So believe it or not, this is fine to unclip. That's why I love that liquid glue. It sets up so fast. Now, fold that top piece out of the way so that you have just this surface here. Okay? You want to take the piece of Designer Series paper that is 4 by 9 1/4, and it's going to lay in and get glued right over the bottom of this card, and that is to hide that flap we glued down. Now, because this piece of paper is the exact same size as this layer of cardstock, I can put my liquid glue right on the cardstock because the edges are all going to match up with each other. And just like we did when we attached the flipping up top, put your top of the Designer Series paper up into the crack where those are connected, where that bends. And then hold it down and just give it a bend to make sure you got it snug in that fold. Now, you want to take this and again, follow it down along the sides to make sure the edge of the Designer Series paper lines up with the edge of the cardstock underneath it. And again, this is why the liquid glue is the best thing for you. Okay, then when you get those lined up, you can press that out. I would go over it maybe with your bone folder, give it a good pressing. And if you want, you can flip it over and see if you have any to trim off. It's not that much, so I'm not going to worry about it because that's the back of the card. Next, we're going to work on this section here. And that's where this 4 by 4 card comes into play. Now, the reason I didn't say to score this fold at a certain spot is because the measurement underneath is more important. And if I said score this at 4, it had a potential to throw off the construction of the bottom. Sometimes cardstocks are not all 8.5 by 11. Once you trim them, it could be off by a 1/16 or 1/8 of an inch. So that's why we just folded this back on itself, and we're just going to work with the area it created. So take your 4 by 4 piece of cardstock. Now you can have it cover exactly if you wanted. You know, I like to pull it down a little and create a border. You see this gray showing? So that is what I'm going to do with mine. And I'm going to trim those off. It's not much to trim off, but it's just enough. It's better to have trimming off because you can always take away, but you can't add in a situation like this. So it's better to start with the 4 by 4 square and trim it to fit. You're not losing much cardstock, see, so it's not that big of a loss. And then dry fit it in there, see which way you want it to go. How's it look? It looks good to me. Now at this point, what I thought would be fun, which I did not do in the tutorial, I thought it would be fun to do some tone-on-tone stamping for this. And I love tone-on-tone stamping. And I haven't played with these stamps yet from the new hand pen suite. So we are going to go ahead and get this out of here. Now, I don't have this color blue ink, but in the new in colors for 2021, there is a color called Soft Succulent. And it's like a gray green. And I thought, well, you know what, we'll just use that since we're kind of using grays and greens on this project. So I am just going to pat that into the ink pad. And I'm going to focus on the flower head going around the edge of this cardstock. And don't worry about it coming into the middle, because it's actually going to be covered up. We're more worried about the way it looks on the edge than the overlapping in the middle. Okay. Put your ink pad away. And we could actually bring that ink pad back and do what I like to do, which is go over the edge to give a good finished edge. So it doesn't really look like it's floating on that card base. All right, flap it out, get a little air on it to dry it. Now, because this piece is smaller than the surface area where we're going to glue it, I'm going to put the glue on the back of this. And slide it into place until it looks good. And press it down. Okay. Now move that over to the side. Now you have those two pieces left of paper. One is the cardstock that is 3 by 6.5. And one is the designer series paper, which is 6 1/4 by 2 3/4. And that is going to overlap on there to be decorative. Now, if you want to stamp on this is the time to do it. You would stamp on this layer, attach it to the cardstock, or if you want to trim these with a pretty edge, you could do that. You could round the corners. You could do anything you wanted to do, but this is the point where you would decorate this panel for the card. I am going to take, again, the soft succulent and use that to edge out this cardstock. I do forget the name of this cardstock. I should have written that down. But in the detail explanation of this tutorial video, I will list out the products and the measurements. Okay, and again, just flap it a little, let it dry. And because this is smaller than the cardstock we're adhering it to, flip that over to apply your glue. And slide it on into place until it looks good for you. There we go. That's why we like that liquid glue. Liquid glue is the cheapest product you can buy, and it's the best product you can buy. So I will also include a link to my Stampin' Up! Shop online so you can get yourself some of this stuff. It is magical glue. It is the glue that I love the most. Now, this decorative layer is going to be attached to this blue square up here. So we're going to just eyeball the fact that this side showing of the blue, this side and this side are about the same width. Okay? And you want to just visually, like, put your finger about here. Because when you put glue on the back of this, you don't want to go past about where your finger is, or you'll end up getting glue on the bottom of the card. We need to keep the adhesive just on the top of this panel, okay? So you can put your finger there and then know not to go below that your line. If you need extra help where your finger is holding it, put a pencil line on the back. And then just slide that into place. Make sure it looks good and centered. Press that down. Now this is the body of the card. The body of the card is now complete. What we're going to be adding next is the stopper down here that this sits up against, as well as another embellishment up here to put a sentiment. So you can put this off to the side. Bring out those two die cuts. I'm going to stick with the soft succulent since that's the color we are using the most. And let's do inside of this, it says anything is possible, and so we've got an anything is possible stamp, and we have congratulations. So let's work with those. I like to do 2 sentiments on a card this big because there's a lot of real estate to work with, and you might as well use the space you have, okay? I'm going to use the smaller stamping block. It is important to want to use a stamping block that fits your space so that you don't have any wobble over it. Like if I used that big block I just used for just that little sentiment word, it would wobble as I stamped it and would have the potential to put ink all over my stamping. So we're going to start with the congratulations one. And that is going to fit right like that on our flower, okay? So I picked it up, and I'm going to just tap it into the ink. See there? You can use your Stamparatus for this if you want, but this is just one quick stamp, so hopefully we should be good with not needing it. There you go. Congratulations. So we have that stamped. And I did get some ink on my block, so I'm going to wipe that off so I don't transfer that to the next stamping, which is going to be this label. And the next stamp, which is anything is possible. So this will be good for graduation, I think. There we go. Get that on the block. And it's okay to put your finger on here because you're actually helping condition this stamp.